So let's get to the big three.
Number 3. Do you specifically condemn Hamas, a designated terrorist organization?
It's disingenuous to ask about condemning Hamas while Palestinians are the ones being starved now by Israel.
Wow. Mahmoud Khalil, the 33-year-old graduate student who graduated and is so ungrateful he will not even condemn Hamas and is suing the Trump administration for unlawful or wrongful imprisonment. What he said on CNN will stun you.
Number 2.
But I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan. I always say it has to be great for everybody. It's a great deal. A lot different from the deals in the past, I can tell you that.
Trump is on a roll as he reels in 2 more trade deals before the August 1st deadline, Japan and the Philippines, as he segues today to AI and how he plans to harness this mighty technology.
Number 1.
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement.
Obama hits back hard at Trump after Tulsi Gabbard exposes papers revealing an alleged plot to overthrow Trump as he took power back in 2016. We'll talk about what we're learning. And with us now is Josh Holmes. Josh, welcome back.
Hey, Brian. It's great to be here.
All right. So first off, how does it feel to be at Fox for a week?
Man, it is an absolute blast. I mean, for all you listeners who are wondering if the same people you hear and listen and watch on a day-to-day basis are as good of people, as nice and kind, I can assure you they are behind the scenes. It has just been an exceptional reception. We're loving it.
Yeah, I know you guys are all over the channel now, but how do we, just before we get into the topics, how do we get the Ruthless podcast now as opposed to where we got it before?
Same as it ever was, Brian. Same as it ever was. Nothing changes. We're just available in a few more spots on Fox and FoxNews.com and Outkick and everything else. But if you got it from your regular podcast place and YouTube, you can still get it there.
So I want to bring you to what's going on the college campuses and the trade deals. If you look at what the president's done, I think it's got 70-plus executive orders. He's moving on so many different fronts, one of which I was not expecting, but was long been a topic, was straightening out the higher education, including the elite education. And he's taken on Harvard, taken on George Mason of late. He's got a deal working now with Columbia, we understand. And now we find out one of the guys that he was set to deport, but the judges jumped in his way, was Mahmoud Khalil. Remember, he was the one leading all the rioting over at Columbia. He was asked on CNN in his Washington, D.C. victory tour, now that he's out of detainment, he was asked CNN to condemn Hamas. Listen to this. Cut 26.
Do you specifically condemn Hamas, a designated terrorist organization in the United States, not just for their actions on October 7th?
I condemn the killing of all civilians, full stop. But what I don't want to get into is, I am very clear with condemning all civilians. I'm very straight in my position in that part. But it's disingenuous to ask about condemning Hamas while Palestinians are the ones being starved now by Israel. It's not condemning October 6th, where 260 Palestinians were killed by Israel before October 7. So I hate this selective outrage of condemnation, because this is not. This wouldn't lead to a constructive conversation.
She does it 2 more times. Cannot get him to say it. What does that tell you?
Yeah, pretty straightforward, or not straightforward at all. What is clear is that here's a guy who's rewarded with the opportunity to come to the United States of America, and he turns around and basically embraces people who have had an absolute commitment to killing Americans, calls for destruction of Western civilization, essentially. I mean, this is exactly what President Trump has been talking about all along. I mean, you mentioned the college campuses and everything that's been going on there. I would wager to say 70-80% of Americans agree entirely with President Trump, because it's just common sense. You ought to straighten this stuff out. And people who hate our country, it didn't used to be a controversial thing. I mean, everybody was like, okay, maybe it's good if we pay an arm and a leg to send our kid to school, that perhaps they should get an education. And it doesn't seem particularly controversial, but it has taken the leadership of President Trump to raise all of these things and put it back in the public consciousness.
Anti-Semitism raging on campuses. They know if they can't control it, Trump's coming down like a ton of bricks on their heads. This is really changing things. Josh, do you see real change, or are they going to look just to wait out the Trump administration?
Well, I think what has happened is both in terms of college campuses and in terms of corporate America, frankly, it takes leadership to draw out what everybody, or at least the vast majority of Americans, agree with in the first place. If you duck and hide like former President Biden and his administration from real corrosive issues, anti-Semitism, anti-American, anti-Western civilization, it allows it to grow and foster. And the good news is just a little bit of leadership in the other direction. The rest of the country will rally around it, and I think that's what we're seeing.
All right. I want to go to another decision that you're very familiar with if you work for Mitch McConnell, and that is the decision to confirm these deputies, these undersecretaries, and these secretaries to allow administrations to get their feet underneath them. And Chuck Schumer has extended or delayed recess in order to keep senators around to urge them to confirm their nominees. Should Senator Thune do the same thing? Because the president wants him to postpone everybody's vacation, their month recess, in order to get somebody confirmed. Will this work? Do you think Senator Thune should do it?
Yeah, this is always the tug and pull between the executive and the Senate when it comes to confirmations. And Trump, once again, has gotten a totally raw deal by the Democrats. I think it is the case that his nominees are the first set of nominees in history to not receive a single unanimous consent agreement, meaning that they wouldn't have to take an up or down vote and they could just be confirmed if they're non-controversial. Democrats don't want to do that, right? But I think there is some context here that's worth examining, which is Thune has taken more votes already on nominees than any of his predecessors or any previous Senate. And I think almost. But
they're behind the Obama pace by a lot.
They are. They're behind because of these package deals that Democrats won't agree to, which, what we used to do back in the day is you'd take 25, 30 nominees that were non-controversial, that flew out of committee on a bipartisan basis, put them together and do an up or down unanimous consent agreement. And so you can just burn through a whole bunch of these nominees without taking 3, 4, 5 weeks of calendar. The piece about the Trump agenda, which is so amazing, by the way, 6 months they've accomplished more than I can ever remember, is it's taken a lot of floor time, right? The big beautiful bill and all of these other things have required an awful lot of attention. So these nominees, if every one of them requires a vote, which Democrats seem to be insisting upon, are going to lag a little bit behind. And so, look, should they take vacation? Should they not? Absolutely, they should try to get done as much as they can possibly get done. I do think the one piece that is always a little undersold in terms of the public consciousness is you're going to want your senator and congressman at some point to come back and tell you what it is that they've done here. You don't want this permanent class of people to just constantly live in D.C., never get back home, hear from their constituents and things like that. So there is a balance to be struck here, but I agree they're going to have to move these nominees.
So Hunter Biden decides to sit down for 2 long podcasts, one with Jamie Harrison, who used to run the DNC, the other with this guy, Andrew Callahan, who I guess has some YouTube success. Don't know much about him. The choices of venues are interesting, but what he said to me is of no benefit if he's looking to help his family rehab their image. Listen to a little of it. For example, what he said about his dad's debate, cut 38.
And I'll tell you what, I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, and the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired as shit. Give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
Excuse me? Turns out today, he walks back that statement. I didn't say he was on Ambien. I said it's like he was on Ambien. What is he talking about?
It's just A+ content. I mean, we did a whole thing on Tuesday on Hunter's entire interview on the Ruthless Variety program because we can't get enough of it. The Ambien thing was completely ridiculous. First of all, he was home for a week. It's not more, actually more. Right. It was more like 10 days before the debate. And, if it was Ambien that threw him off, what happened in the other 364 days of that year where he acted exactly the same way as he did on that debate stage? I mean, it was funny. I got a kick out of it. The content was just A+.
This is what he said yesterday to Jonathan Carl. Called up and says, listen, your dad was on Ambien? That's news. How do you know? He said, I have no idea whether or not he used Ambien while traveling through multiple time zones in the weeks leading up to the debate. My point was that his debate performance was completely out of character then and now. This is the smartest person Joe Biden knows, remember? Could you hurt your dad any more than this? Make up some drug that he's using without a prescription?
He's just winging it, right? And he's clearly pissed off. And the one thing I really appreciate is he's just burning every bridge, right? Whether it's George Clooney or Barack Obama or David Axelrod or the Pod Bros. I mean, all the Democratic establishment is just getting flamethrowed by Hunter Biden, and I'm here for it.
Here is Hunter Biden doing something that I need a clarification on, and that is, how do you make crack, and is it really good for you? Cut 37.
People think of crack as being dirty. It's the exact opposite. When you make crack, what you're doing is you're burning off all the impurities so that it combines with the sodium bicarbonate, which makes it smokable. That's all. You know, all of these actors and, people in the past that talked about they had a problem with cocaine and freebasing. They were smoking crack.
So straw on the stove is the same thing?
Not exactly, but close to it. But it's a little bit different. But anyway.
Well, put it this way. I love the follow-up question. So straw on the stove is the same. So out of all the clarification, as a host, you always try to move the story forward. But that follow-up question, I just am not equipped to ask.
No, and if you take a look at the guy, for those of you who've seen it on YouTube, it's not exactly Edward R. Murrow that he's sitting across from. But, you got to appreciate Hunter Biden's just ride or die mentality. Everything from the defense of his father at all turns, despite our lying eyes, to the relative health impact or benefits of crack versus alcohol. I mean, this guy is a piece of work, everything that we wanted and more. And frankly, he's been such a liability for Joe Biden for so long. The fact that he's now just taking the muzzle off and doing these kind of interviews, I want him to come on Ruthless. I mean, can you imagine, Brian, if we had him for an hour?
Well, put it this way. So, people are saying, well, the president's family want him out there because they're losing the narrative to the auto pen story. Really? So, but you do that by, instead of going after, you went after Trump. Everyone expects that. But David Axelrod hasn't done anything before Barack Obama. Does the word Deval Patrick mean anything? And by the way, James Carville hasn't won a race since the 90s. Yeah, I know, but he hasn't had to. You won 2 presidential races. One, he came out of nowhere. I don't mean to sell this guy. And then he goes, here's what he says about George Clooney. And I listen to this 24 hours a day. Listen to this.
I don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not a actor. He is a I don't know what he is. What do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to undermine the president at a time in which, by the way, what do people care about the most? Why do you think that the Republicans have an advantage over us? Because they're unified. They will go along with anything. I wasn't asking anybody to go along with anything. I was asking people to go along with this. The most successful administration in my lifetime.
Right. So, and anyway, I love when he went off. Hey, I hear he has a great house in Lake Como. Good for you. I hear he's nice to his friends. That's fantastic. I mean, just everything. This is just whatever's on his mind.
I could only, when he was doing the whole bit there on Clooney, all I could think of was that internet meme when the worst person you know says something you agree with. That's all that could pop into my head. But on the unification front, I mean, they're sitting in a Democratic Party that managed to unify around somebody that they, in their entirety, agreed in Kamala Harris was both unqualified and totally ill-equipped to run for president. And they circled the wagons as fast as they could get. I'm not sure unification was the problem. It was unification against an 81-year-old who couldn't put 2 sentences together that was the issue for Democrats.
Very interesting. So just real quick on the Republican Party, it looks like they're outraising big time the Democrats so far in the midterm. It's usually just the opposite. How do you think that the Republicans have the momentum, or do you think this Epstein story could help Democrats?
I don't think the Epstein thing is is something that's going to play in midterms. I think they're probably going to deal with that with some transparency here sooner rather than later. The money's great. People are doing a great job, NRSC, FCC, all the super PACs and everything. But I think the bigger piece is the environment's going to dictate a lot. It looks great. I heard in your run-up talking about these trade deals that Trump is putting together.
Yep.
Obviously, the big, beautiful bill is a big deal. If this economy is humming the way that I suspect it will be next year, I think that's the biggest catalyst for electoral success. There is going to be a lot of hard work that needs to be done for Republicans to hold majorities between now and then, but I think the environment is trending the right way.
All right. He is Josh Holmes, and we'll catch up with the Ruthless podcast and his buddies anywhere you can get podcasts. Josh, glad to have you in the family. Look forward to talking to you again.
You're the man, Brian. Really appreciate it.
All right. Remind everybody else that I'm the man, especially when I'm with Jesse or Sean Hannity.
Deputy Attorney General has reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney asking for a new interview.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but I think it's something that sounds appropriate to do, yeah.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, as your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given...
No, I have no concern. He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt.
And that is President Trump yesterday taking some questions about the decision to have Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, go visit Ghislaine. What do I mispronounce that? Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, who was a longtime confidant, girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, who was friends with Donald Trump early on in the 90s and, into 2006. And they stopped talking. But now they want to say that this is Trump's new Achilles heel, that he's trying to avoid the subject. Yeah, he does not want to talk about this. There's no benefit to talking about this, and there's so many other things going on. Carley Shimkus is here, co-host of Fox and Friends First, and author of the book she's constantly selling, Cooking with Friends.
Hi, well, thank you for that plug.
Yeah.
I want everybody to eat, drink, and be merry.
Right?
Yes.
I'm in that picture.
Yes, you are.
Right,
Remember that photo shoot? That was like 2.5 years ago.
You came off... What was maternity?
Oh my gosh, that's right.
You came off maternity. I hadn't seen you for the longest time, and you claimed to have had this child, and then you come back just for the photo shoot. Then you went back to maternity.
Yeah, because it was like 4 weeks after I gave birth.
Right.
And there you are. And I fed you during the photo shoot. It was a unique moment.
It's so inappropriate, right? Oh my God. So I'm watching every channel. I mean, there's Epstein's on every channel now.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
And they don't care. They didn't care about this for 15 years.
It is true. And you can understand where President Trump is coming from in that clip that you just played, where he was like, what they're doing on this is fine by me. He wants transparency. He's always said it. But to him, it genuinely feels like such a nothing burger. Why are we talking about this when he's had so many policy successes recently?
So you know what it reminds him of? The Russia investigation, the impeachment, a thing with Ukraine and the phone call. It reminds him of the whole thing with New York City and the whole thing with Stormy Daniels, and then the documents case, and then whatever they were saying in Georgia. And he's saying, really? You're going to go Trump? I'm not even going to pay attention to it now. I got the job.
Yeah.
I'm doing the job. I'm not talking about something of a guy that killed himself 6 years ago. You know who said that? Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said that. And that's the beginning of the fallout. We haven't heard much about it since.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like there would have been a time in President Trump's political career where he could go all out on this, because when he feels like he's being unfairly targeted, no matter who's targeting him, he's a fighter. He punches back. But I think that as far as a man of his age can mature, he just by him going through this so many times, he says that's a distraction and I'm just going to do my job now. So there's political maturity that he's displayed during his second time in office.
Yeah. So Alan Dershowitz has claimed that Maxwell knows everything about Epstein's perverted crimes, describing her as the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, well, obviously, right?
Epstein's drama bursts back into the front pages, as you know, and why this blows me away, that Alan Dershowitz, who worked so hard to get his name disassociated with...
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Yeah, and now he's talking about it again.
Everywhere.
And he's a part of this story, right? He was friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, Brian, my opinion of the story is similar to that, I guess, of President Trump's, where I think that there are so many more important and interesting things that are going on right now, that this one just feels a little bit like, horrific, obviously, what happened, but the way that it's being brought back into the news today, where it's, it's trying to be used as a political cudgel, doesn't interest me at all.
All right, I hear you, and I'm going to change subject. I just want you to hear what Jonathan Turley said about with Todd Blanche going to visit her in prison and what it means. Cut 36.
Well, there's a certain degree of emergency management going on here. The administration wants to show the public it's doing everything it can to release any information that might still be withheld. The problem is that some of us are rather skeptical that there is something significant with Maxwell being withheld. If so, the expiration date on this milk ran a long time ago. I mean, she's been interviewed repeatedly by the Justice Department. She's had interactions with other legal teams. It would be very surprising if she was holding on to something that was a game changer. But the problem is that this is the type of scandal that the public simply is skeptical of getting the interpretation of evidence as opposed to the evidence itself. The only thing that is likely to quell some of these doubts is near total transparency.
So that was Jonathan Turley. Here we go. And this is going to be, to see like Senator Chris Coons of Delaware talking about the Epstein case, we got to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah,
come on.
Right.
You know he has no interest in that.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the questions that people have are, did he kill himself? Did he not? And Kash Patel has said definitively that yes, he has.
Okay.
That's what he's saying.
And that's the least controversial thing.
But the other thing is the list, the Epstein client list that... Yeah, I mean, that was promised, right? I mean, people were saying within the Trump administration that it was promised, and that so far has not appeared anywhere in the white binder. So that was really strange.
All right, so you indulge me for that. Let's just talk about something that sadly, that you and I care about, that we kind of laugh because it's not the sexiest topic in the world. But when the president announces Liberation Day, he's going to redo these trade deals. Last time it was just a USMCA and some tariffs. This time it's about 90 new trade deals. Now he says, no, I'm looking for the top 10, and then the rest I'm going to give them blanket tariffs. Yesterday, about 4 or 5 o'clock, we see this note about Japan.
Yeah, and that's huge news especially because Japan was giving the Trump administration such a difficult time, and the president had already signaled, and he got really frustrated in a Truth Social post, somewhat worded in a comedic way about like, they're not accepting our rice. They're not accepting our rice. But that was a huge deal. And also one of the big issues was the car tariff. So that deal has been signed. And I just always go back to the initial reaction of everybody who is in the know when it comes to things economically and politically. And they say that this is going to be the downfall of the Trump administration. All of these tariffs, and the president comes out with this big poster board of reciprocal tariffs, and people were making fun of it. Well, the upside is what is happening right now, albeit at a slower pace than I'm sure anybody would like to see. But you can't tell me that this isn't positive for the U.S. economy and the future of the country.
Fifth biggest trading partner. So the largest deal yet. Japan will invest $550 billion into the United States, and we will receive 90% of the profits. The deal will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. There's also been anything like it, he said. Japan will open up their country to trade, including cars, trucks, and rice, and our agricultural products, and then they'll pay reciprocal tariffs to the United States of 15%. So it's a reconfiguration of an imbalance that had Japan at a $69.4 billion surplus come to our deficit.
Yeah, so I guess F-150s on Japanese
Finally, let's see if they can handle it.
Right?
So here is President Trump on what could be happening today or tomorrow. Cut 18.
This deal is, they say, the biggest deal ever made. And we have Europe coming in tomorrow, and the next day we have some other ones coming in. We're doing things that have never been done in this country before, and our country is becoming very rich again, and that's the way it should be. They're not taking advantage of us.
So pretty cool. If Europe comes in, I mean, that's the number one partner, I think. China's number two where the framework is done. So we'll see where this stays. And now the president is beating up on the Fed chair because the interest rates are too high.
Gosh,
I think he called him a knucklehead, or what did he call him yesterday?
He did.
Numbskull.
Numbskull. Yeah, it was. So tell us how you really feel about Jerome Powell, whose term is over May of next year. And the president has made it clear that he's not going to, I mean, he literally can't fire him. And I don't think it would be politically savvy for him to do so. He said that he's not going to, but he's putting the pressure on him to lower those interest rates because we have to pay interest on the national debt. And that's a huge deal. And he wants to stimulate the economy in that way. I mean, the $2 billion price tag for the renovations of the Fed. I mean, how do you spend $2.5 billion on something like that?
And that's what they're trying to use to maybe oust him early, and maybe he'll resign with this type of pressure. But evidently, the Fed chair, the officers don't all agree that the rate should stay the same. What I think makes it sound political, and there's certainly people on the Business Channel that have a much richer knowledge on this, is when he comes out and says, about not raising rates, there's just too much uncertainty with the tariffs. That is a word that's become very political and associated with Trump. And he's like, really? Is that a shot at me because of the tariffs? We already have an indication because the market has totally bounced back and surpassed where it was. Things are stabilized. You see the prices of goods pretty even.
Yeah.
So you have your indications. And what I think about more, the home buyers. So if you're a middle-class person, you're doing a little bit better, and it's time maybe to get a bigger house. Can't really. Got a 3% mortgage. Now, I'm not going to go get a 7% mortgage.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. It's going to be a bigger house, ideally, and now I got to pay more money anyway, and now I'm paying more interest. Honey, we got to stay here. Put the kids in bunk beds.
Those conversations are happening across the country, even with my friends who are thinking about moving from house to house and saying, we're going to stay in a smaller home because the interest rates are too high. Well, you can always refinance. Well, you're wasting money.
Refinance on what?
And
with an
refinance
interest
when?
rate.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens and who the next Fed chair will be in May of next year. Kevin Hassett.
But if I'm Kevin Hassett or Scott Bessent, I don't want that job because you got to be independent. And you're going to feel so much pressure with your buddy there. And President Trump, if he puts you there, he's going to be like, hey, Scott, lower the rates. I gave you the job. So I would not want that pressure.
Did you hear the president a couple days ago? He's like, it's the easiest job in the world.
You got one thing.
You have one thing. You just go, you just put the interest rate there and that's what it is. I mean, the target is 2% inflation, right? We're not there. I mean, we're higher than that.
Right.
So yeah, that should be pointed out. I think that might be a situation where both sides have a bit of a point.
Right. Well, that's nice. That shows you can see both sides of things. Very fair and balanced. A few more minutes with Carley Shimkus in a moment.
Are men afraid of approaching girls now?
Okay, so if they are, do you remember the Me Too movement?
No, I forgot about it.
Totally blacked that one out. Where cis men were public enemy number one. So if this is true, then I think that men have every right to be scared of women. And it's the women's own doing. So now they're sitting alone at bars and thinking maybe we shouldn't have done that.
So it's your fault.
I think so.
I
mean,
that
if you
answer.
mean me as the collective 50% of the population, women, kind, then yeah, I guess.
Do men approach you cold, out of the blue?
Now I'm married.
But they don't know that, and they don't care.
No, I haven't been. No one's actually.
Well, men really are scared.
No,
they're terrified.
Wait a second. I'm starting to feel really bad about myself. I hadn't thought about that before.
I mean, you just said it.
So this is the problem I had. So you and Jesse Waters to find out, not knowing you're going to be on, and then to just go listen to on Sirius Radio. I didn't even see it. And then to hear you have this type of chemistry with another host.
Oh,
really,
is that what happened?
Really?
Brian, I am flattered.
It really made me jealous.
Okay, so I do love am I allowed to say that I love being on Jesse's show? Because it's fun.
Yeah.
He is fun to talk to.
Right.
But I also think you're fun to talk to.
But behind the scenes, was there tension? Like, you're going to say, like, he's not really like that? Is there nothing?
No.
You get along with him, too?
We were laughing before the segment and after as well.
Wow.
And I sometimes do his quiz, the sink or swim on Fridays.
Right.
And he tries to help me out because I am terrible at that game.
And he's so there is chemistry, legitimate chemistry.
Well, like work chemistry.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only talking about work chemistry. I don't care about any other chemistry.
But also, can we focus on the fact that moment that you just played was the moment I realized that I am a pathetic person?
Because
he was like, when was the last time a man approached you? And I was like, I can't even remember.
Wow.
And he's like, wow, how old are you? And I was thinking to myself, like, not old enough to feel that way.
Well, I will say this. I think there's a point. I don't think there's very few guys I know that were no problem approaching a woman cold, ever.
Well, also a married woman. Like some people say, oh, guys don't care. Of course they do.
Right.
Men have a moral compass.
Well, let's say, do you wear your wedding ring when you work out?
Yeah, I really rarely take it off. But I work out in my building.
Right,
so
but let's say two adults working out, and you don't have a wedding ring on.
Uh-huh.
And then someone asks you out. Do you say, excuse me, I don't know what you're thinking. How dare you approach me?
I would never do that.
But
that has also never happened to me. I would probably be more flattered and like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's great. I would obviously never go.
You wouldn't go on the date.
But then I tell my husband and he'd be like, nice. Cool.
He would say that?
I probably because
I don't think he'd say
because
that.
it's just funny, right? Like it's like, oh wow. Yeah, you still got it.
But Carley, don't you think that he might be saying, what kind of signals are you sending out?
No.
No?
No, he's not like that. Actually, one of the initial, not fights at all, but like discussions that we had when we were just dating, as I was like, I mean, that was when I was in my early 20s and when people were, I guess, approaching me because I was more going out and, you're just in that season of your life. And he would never care. And I'd be like, shouldn't you care more? He's like, do you want me to be jealous? Like more jealous? Isn't that like a bad thing? I was like, yeah, I do want that. And then
really?
Yeah. And then I changed my mind. And because he showed it. And then he's like, you told me to do this.
I think it shows he's secure.
Yeah, extremely. Yeah.
And that bothers you a little.
No, I guess it did at the time, but I was also 23 and had no idea what I was doing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else that you probably don't understand. And that's why putting sugar cane in Coke is a good thing?
Oh, I do understand that.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
But it's just pure sugar.
Thing.
But we are still talking about sugar.
Right.
I know Maha considers this another win. Here's James Quincy, the CEO of, on the Claiming Countdown, of Coke, Cut 39.
Well, it's one of those ideas that's been bouncing around for a time, but it's not really taken shape and form until we got into this year and actually said, you know what, maybe the idea, it's one of those ideas whose time has come. So we've been working on it during the year, and as we announced, we're coming in the fall, so we're almost there. I loved your pun on cane firm, by the way. That was good.
I did not know he had a British accent.
Right.
But I do like this.
Instead of some fake sugar.
Listen, no one is saying that drinking a can of Coke is healthy, but getting the chemicals out of any product is better. So I think that sugar cane is generally considered more healthy than high fructose corn syrup. However, I like what they're doing because some farmers who produce corn were very worried about the switch over to sugar cane, which I think you have to import. So they're doing both. So then you get the option, and more options are better than fewer.
All right, good. But Maha considers that another win.
Yeah.
They have a lot to get in a lot of these chemicals. A lot of these major companies are doing that. And I saw Casey Means' brother, Carley.
Yes.
Carley. Yesterday, I was in Washington yesterday, and I go, wow, you guys are off to a great start because he's with the FDA. He said, oh, no. You're not going to believe what's coming next.
What's coming next?
So that's what I asked him. He's like, I can't go over it now, but soon. I said, that sounds great. So they are just rattling all the food companies to the core by saying, we're sticking around. We're not kidding. This is real. We got all the levers of power. RFK has some friends on the left, so they know who he's going for. This is pretty big.
I love it. Stick around, America.
Because
we'll find out
doctors
what Callie
never
means.
talk about nutrition.
Right.
General practitioners don't. So now we got to do it.
Yes. The heck with the food pyramid.
All right. Carley Shimkus, I can't wait to see you on Water's World again. It'll be great. Batya Ungar-Sargon joins us now. Batya, first off, what level of interest do you have in this new revelations that Tulsi Gabbard's bringing forward?
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I have to say, I feel extremely angry that this is the top story instead of this amazing trade deal with Japan, and I blame both sides, obviously, like the media, but I also blame President Trump for this.